Evidence. Which Christian has not heard atheists request evidence for God's existence? Secularists believe the existence of God is unproven. They assume that which does not exist cannot be proven to exist. This has never been proven to be true, especially as what exists cannot be proven to exist, in a conclusive and non-controversial way. When atheists ask for proof, they mean even if they do not state, they want scientific proof. The existence of God having not been proven, means the existence of God has not been proven using the methodology of science. At least this is the position of secularists. Atheists generally justify their rejection of the God claim by statements such as, unsubstantiated claims can and should be dismissed until evidence is provided. In the mind of most people this appears to be a reasonable position to take. Another way of expressing this thinking is the unexamined claim that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence or can be rejected without examination. Yet, such answers represent two of the most unconsidered and unintelligent responses it is possible to make. However, every discussion between Christian and atheist has been cut short by the demand for proof. The inability of Christians to respond has served to end every atheist/Christian debate since these demands became the centerpiece of the atheist response. Imagine yourself in a crowded market, such as the one in which a truck was recently driven through, in Germany. This event may be in your mind as you walk by, looking at the products displayed. You see people running towards you, yelling. You may not understand the language. But regardless, if you see everyone running towards you in terror, you are going to turn and run. It could be a gag, it could be people running in a panic because they thought others were running in panic. You will run in the direction they are going, and you will not be demanding they provide proof of a threat. Which brings me to my second point. The claim that every unsubstantiated claim should be dismissed until evidence is provided, is accepted as valid without evidence the claim is valid. Which is unfortunate, because it would have lessened the likelihood of atheists looking like naive hypocrites. The readiness with which atheists have accepted this position, but without proving the rule's validity, is testimony to the rule's irrelevance. The assertion is made to make it less likely for people to become duped by charlatans, throws the baby out with the bathwater. We can protect ourselves from using counterfeit bills by refusing to use money, but the solution defeats the purpose. When a Christian testifies that God exists, he or she is making an assertion. An assertion is not strictly a claim as it carries no expectation. A claim does not burden the person making the claim, but on the listener. That is why it is called a claim. A claim burdens the listener with something the testifier expects. A claim for recompense requires the plaintiff to pay damages. A claim that you owe me money requires proof of the debt. If I say it will rain tomorrow, I do not need to prove it as the statement does not impose a debt on the hearer. A claim that is made with the intent to defraud the target, encourages the target to feel threatened by some group or event. The claim is meant to defraud the target out of money for protection against the threat. When asked to invest in Florida real estate, the target is encouraged to ask for evidence that the investment is what the seller claims it is. The intent is to ensure the mark that the seller has nothing to hide. However, the target usually cannot evaluate the evidence offered. People who have no evidence do not perpetrate stings. A fraud works best when the scammer can create but control the evidence. It is the fear people have of being scammed and the sense one has control of the situation that permits scam artists to perpetuate the scam. The nice girl who comes to the door asking to use the phone expects the homeowner to be wary. If the mark is not suspicious, he or she is less able to be scammed. The homeowner may be aware of the ploys scam artists use and has implemented rules to prevent being scammed. It is knowing what the mark knows and what they expect, that permits the scam artist to scam the mark. The scam artist knows where the homeowner is looking and what concerns him or her and keeps the mark's gaze fixated on what he or she fears while perpetuating the scam. The police may leave unlocked cars on the street, in the expectation they will be stolen. They look unguarded, but the car can always be found, and the criminal can always be apprehended. Every atheist faced with the statement that God exists, wants evidence. The atheist feels as if he or she is being scammed. Demanding proof gives a secularist the senses that he or she has gained control of the situation. She will wait until the claimant provides undeniable proof before she believes. If a person came up to you and said he is helping needy persons and will give you $1,000 cash, if you need it, will you demand he prove his claim? The likelihood is that you will say you are in need because by assuming he is lying you can prove if the claim is true or not. One has to assume a lie is being told to test for truth. To prove a thing is true, one has to do everything they can to try and prove it false. Atheists avoid doing this, yet this is the very situation atheists face when told Jesus saves. If it is a lie, then do everything you can do to prove it is a lie. Do not ask it to be proven true. Who benefits if the claim is a lie, and who suffers if it is the truth? The secularists make demands on someone who has no vested interest in lying. Christians are not selling you swamp land. There is nothing in your conversion for us. Christ's messengers neither gain or lose regardless of your response. What you choose is your gain or your loss. To demand proof of the claim is actually a bizarre response to a reiteration of the observation that God exists. Every atheist demands proof of God upon hearing this, but none of you stop and think about what you are demanding, or why. Atheists claim the burden of proof is on those who claim God exists. Atheists don't have to prove God doesn't exist, believers have to prove He does. Yet this misunderstands the burden of proof. The concept is borrowed from civil law. It refers to the obligation a party has to provide sufficient evidence for the claim's veracity or lose the case. Western legal systems have a presumption of innocence. The prosecutor must prove the accused is guilty of an offense or the accused is acquitted and be legally innocent. The presumption of innocence is a choice we as a society have made, lest prosecutors use the power of the state to falsely convict members of the opposition and bring about a reign of terror. However, the burden of proof works differently in other settings, such as philosophical or religious discussions. From a logical point of view, it does not matter whether one is arguing for proposition P, or for its falsity, not P. In the absence of evidence, neither is more probable than the other. Consequently, as long as nothing is proved, nobody has a burden of proof. The burden is created when one person begins asserting either P or not P. If he wants to convince a person of a proposition or its falsity, then he needs to offer reasons why his position is more valid than the alternative. The philosophical burden of proof thus does not intrinsically fall on either party. It is something that you assume when you try to convince someone else of a position. These arguments applies to situations where one person makes a claim about the existence of something. Until you consider the evidence, neither the proposition X exists nor the proposition X does not exist can be deemed more probable than the other, and it doesn't matter what X is. As long as you have no evidence favoring the existence or non-existence of X, both propositions are equally probable. If a theist wants to convince a non-theist that God exists, he needs to provide arguments for his position, and if an atheist wishes to convince a non-atheist that God does not exist, he similarly needs to offer arguments for his position. The burden of proof is assumed by whoever is attempting to convince the audience his position is the correct one. Naturalism is not natural to science. The naturalist worldview was superficially brought into science. The methods and institutions of science do not compel us to accept a material explanation of the phenomenal world. In actual fact, it is our a priori adherence to materialist causes that creates an apparatus of investigation that produce materialist explanations. Christians do not and never have denied science. Anyone can observe the majority of us are Christian. Christians have no difficulty agreeing with the discoveries of applied science. That we deny some of the more speculative musings is not unscientific. Our challenges may be inconvenient for atheists, but that does not make questioning the speculative narrative of scientists immoral. We are willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it leads to God. Atheists just have a smaller range of options to choose from. Atheists have an artificially limited horizon of explanatory options. Excluding explanatory options is unscientific. There are no good scientific reasons for excluding God.